What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to send some error codes into your brain, and I'm going to talk to you about the true definition of a good length. So let's start this video off by shattering some myths. Good length does not have to be glued to the side wall. That is correct. Read that again. Hear that again. Good length is not necessarily the length that is glued to the side wall. As we go on in this video, I'm going to show you a fantastic winning length that hit the side wall in line with the service box, that took its first bounce in the service box and was a winner. How is that possible? Well, here's how. The way I like to think about a good length is one that achieves the dynamic objective of that moment. So what I mean by that is, depending on the position in the court, the circumstances, every situation has a different goal or a purpose or an intention. So let me give you some examples. Maybe you want to buy some time so that you can get back to the tee and settle. In that case, a good length would be one that is high and slow and not fading into the back. Well, it could, but it's high and slow. It doesn't necessarily have to be hit low and hard and glued to the side wall. It could be a high lob that isn't necessarily even that tight to the side wall, but it goes over your opponent's head and thus buys you time to get to the tee. Maybe you want to win the rally from an attacking position, then maybe a good length is defined as one that you hit flatter and lower and harder that takes its second bounce in that back nick. Alternatively, a good length could simply be one that gets past your opponent's volley, and let this register for a moment, that becomes tight and catches the side wall or grazes the side wall at the point when your opponent wants to volley. So if your opponent is right up on the short line, a good length could be one that grazes the side wall at the short line, but then pops out into the court a little bit. Doesn't have to be glued to the side wall the entire time. In fact, depending on the angle from which you are hitting, it is practically impossible in most cases to glue the ball to the side wall when you're hitting that length. Another scenario could be that maybe you want to force that loose ball. So in this case, you're trying to fade your length, and maybe it's not dying short before the back glass, but maybe it's just lowering into that back glass so that your opponent is being forced to take it early and hit under and up on the ball, thus potentially forcing a loose ball and allowing you to attack. The other thing I'd like to suggest to you is that the position that you initiate your length from and your skill level define the options that you have. So simply put, the position from which Ali Farag can be in an attacking position to hit an attacking length would definitely be a rallying position for me in most cases, and depending on your skill level, maybe even a defensive position based on your experience and skill level playing. So everything I'm talking about is relative and gets scaled relative to your skill level and playing experience. So what I want to do first is I want to give you guys an example of when catching the side wall mid-court can actually be defined as a good length. And here's an example from Ali Farag playing Yusuf Salman in the current tournament that's taking place in Houston. So check this out. Farag forces that loose ball from Salman and hits a winner. Now if you watch this over here, and then again we're going to check it out in slow motion, you're going to see some really interesting things that will more than likely defy your previous understanding of good length. So look at the angle with which Farag hits this ball. So Farag's length catches the side wall really far up in the court, but he deliberately did that because he was hitting from a pretty essentially from the middle of the court, front middle of the court. So if he tried to fade that ball back here, Salman would definitely have volleyed it. And he knew that Salman is probably looking to kind of cut his angles off, knowing that Salman's probably pushing up, which means that Farag went extra wide deliberately, given the tactical context I mentioned earlier, to get that ball past Salman's volley. And you see there, watch this, second bounce is inside the service box and the ball is coming into the middle of the court. The ball is going literally into the middle of the court, but still Salman cannot get it. So I really wanted to show you this clip because it totally breaks the common conception that, or the common idea that a good length is one that is just glued to the side wall. This is an example I hope that really resonates with you, to show you that it is all contextually based, and a tight length and a good length is actually one that is tight on the side wall when your opponent wants to volley it, so that you make it difficult for them to volley and they are thus pushed back. So let's show you another example when overhitting the ball is actually good. So in this situation, Solomon has Farag under some pressure. So what does Farag do? He uses some height and gets the right angle to get that ball deep. So as I mentioned, context, Farag is under pressure. He's pushed into the back of the court. And from this position, his goal will be to push Solomon off the tee, giving Farag some time to get back onto the tee and settle. So he's essentially trying to alleviate the pressure, neutralize this attacking position that Solomon had, and then just reset the rally from here. So how would Farag maybe try to do this? He would try to hit a rallying or a defensive length where he uses some height, and he tries to angle the ball away from Solomon's volley and thus push Solomon to the back of the court. So let's see exactly how Farag does that. He hits that ball relatively high on the front wall, not super high, so this is still a rallying drive. A defensive drive would probably be even higher still. And then that ball is angling away from Solomon, so Solomon cannot volley it, and it's relatively high. Catches the side wall at the back of the service box, takes its first bounce in kind of mid-range between the back of the service box and the back glass, and then Solomon is essentially in a rallying position from there. And what happened with Farag? Farag is on the tee, he is settled, and he neutralized the attacking position that Solomon had a moment ago. So that's an example of when a really good length is actually one that is hit higher, deeper, and comes off the back glass, because it gave Farag time to get back to the tee. And again, it wasn't glued to the side wall, but it did angle into the side wall to move away from Solomon. So next up, let's talk about fading your length and forcing a loose ball. So here's going to be another example with Farag, where Solomon hits something slightly short, Farag takes it a bit early, and he gets that amazing weight of stroke and puts that ball away. So let's check this out again in slow-mo. So Solomon's length lands, it's not super short, slightly short, but Farag is on it really early and set in position. He hits it just under the service line. And the thing is that in this position, what a lot of players do is that they have a tendency to come and just try to hit the ball as hard as they can, because they think they equate hitting hard and low with attacking. But that's not the case. You can hit a slow high lob that fades into that back corner, and that's an attacking length. You could hit a mid-pace ball like Farag does over here, and it's fading into the back. That is a forcing or an attacking length. So the goal here from Farag is, from this pretty commanding position, he wants to force Solomon into a pressure situation. So Solomon is forced to hit up and hopefully loose, so that Farag can put that ball away once he's already going to be settled on the tee. So what does Farag do? Like I said, he hits that mid-pace length around the service line. And from here, he is, you'll see, he's on the tee. The ball bounces, again, similar to where Solomon's bounced, except Farag was on it earlier. And that's another point, is your position and the time at which you take the ball, your tee position, how well you anticipate the game, your movement quality, all of those things are massive elements that create the tactical context that you're in. So either way, Solomon can't get on it early, and notice that second bounce is fading into the back wall. Solomon has to go work to get under that ball, really get low. That's a pressure situation. And what happens? He catches a side wall, ball pops up in the middle of the court, and he forces that loose ball and that clinical finish rolling out of the nick. This just goes to show you, and I hope this goes to show you, that any type of length, it could be multiple types of lengths that are actually good lengths depending on the tactical context. And the old school idea of a good length being one that is glued to the sidewall is not the case. Now, I should rephrase that. It's not always the case. If you are playing rallying drives or just rails with someone else, and you're hitting from the position where the ball is already tight to the sidewall, well, then a good length is one that comes back equally as tight. But as soon as you get a bit of an angle, a good length, it's impossible when you have that much of an angle to get that ball to be tight the entire time. The good length becomes one where it moves away from the opponent, and it's basically reaching the sidewall or catching the sidewall where the opponent wants to volley. So it's catching the sidewall dynamically depending on where the opponent's position is. And then depending on the outcome you wish to achieve, differing lengths of height and bouncing off the back wall and all of that stuff we just talked about will actually define whether a length is good or not. I hope that this opened up some new ideas in your mind. I hope this gets you thinking differently with the next time you're on court. I encourage you to go and experiment with different types of length hitting and see the outcome of different types of shots if you are obviously at that skill level where you have enough control to do that. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you know anyone that would enjoy watching this video and would appreciate it and learn from it, I would be very grateful if you shared it with them. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.